get back to week 13 in college football. We'll start with the Friday game. Nebraska ended
Oof.
a 8-game losing skid. This is all Grant's fault because he goes on vacation and he lets Brian Ferentz get out of the closet, and Brian Ferentz was calling the game, and it looked like it because there was up until this point Iowa was rolling. They were playing good. It was the path back to Indy was very clear for them. All they had to do was beat a lowly 3-8 Nebraska team who didn't have a head coach, who they were not playing. I think they lost losers of 5 or 6 straight, and they get down 24-0. To their credit, they battle back. Petrus was hurt. Matt Laporta was I can't remember his first name, was did not play. They definitely missed him. It was crazy to think that they missed Spencer Petrus. Who knows? Maybe that game is a little bit different. But overall, they made Nebraska look like they were like in the Frank Solich era, not Tom Osborne. I don't want to say that too yet, but the defense looked competent. Iowa had no idea. It looked like they've never communicated on the offensive line before, and Alex Padilla was running for his life. They actually and receivers were hit or miss. Padilla, and when he had receivers open, he couldn't hit anybody. Just a very ugly game, and if just maybe this might get Brian Ferentz out of a job, and we'll see because this West in the last 72 hours has gotten a lot better with the hirings of Matt Rule to Nebraska and Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin. The Big Ten West they're in a much better coaching position, and Iowa seems to be still stuck in the early 2000s right now. So this is a little bit of a crossroads. We're gonna have to see what Kirk does. I don't know how you can confidently say if you're Kirk Ferentz that we still have our 2023 quarterback on this roster because they have to go the transfer portal route or do something because whatever they have right now is not it. They don't have receivers who can get open. Their offensive line is abysmal, which has been a staple of the Iowa and Kirk Ferentz program for however many years he's been coaching. But this is definitely a bitter end to a very up and down year for the Hawkeyes.
I mean, disappointing is where you start, and I don't even think that's the right word to say because it's worse than disappointing. Dylan, because last year you're coming off a 10-2 regular season. You win the Big Ten West. Sure, you get mollywomped by Michigan in your bowl game. You lose in the Big Ten title game. Excuse me. You lose a tough game to Kentucky in your bowl game, but still, you're 10-4. You have a lot of players who come back, a lot of experienced players, and you're thinking they should be able to put this together. And it's just a roller coaster of a year, and we'll all go back to that first Saturday in September, 7-3 South Dakota State when your defense outscores your offense 4-3. It was just that was the writing on the wall right there for this tough year. But back to Friday, and I texted you this, and for some reason 3 years in a row, Iowa has now come out sluggish and slow against Nebraska. 2020 in the COVID year, they were able to get that pass rush going and get Tyler Goodson going, and they came back and they got a win to finish that year. I don't know if it was 5-2, 6-2. It was that weird COVID year. I don't remember records, but they were on the verge of actually playing Michigan in that extra game they were going to give teams. Because both teams finished second in their division respectively.
Michigan
That
did
year.
not finish second in their division.
Or so why did or they just thought Iowa and Michigan they should play, but and
It
then
was some I don't know.
it was something,
I try to forget that year.
and then they were going to play Missouri in their bowl game, and then for some reason Missouri said, "Yeah, we're going to play our bowl game," and then they send their players home over Christmas, and the players get they get talking to grandma over Christmas and their siblings, and guess what? They get sick and they cancel the season. So you're bummed out there. And then, like I said, last year to go 10-2, and then, or sorry, last year against Nebraska, you're down 21-6 going into the fourth quarter. You block a punt. Nebraska turns it over again. You're able to win, this game for the seventh year in a row, and you're feeling better about yourself because you got the dub. But this year they just came out flat. They looked like the 3-8 team, and Nebraska looked like they had to win an in situation to get to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten title game. I don't know what this team did this whole week for practice. It doesn't look like they practiced. Maybe they probably had way too much turkey, not only Thursday but Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday, and they couldn't move. They couldn't move at all, and you know it's and then to lose a game, like that, to lose two of your main four rivalry games in your place, going back to Iowa State in week two, it's just it's an awful year. It's a bad year, and they weren't ready to play, and they didn't deserve a shot to get added division title trophy to their trophy case at home, but in Iowa City. But I do gotta say this. I gotta give some credit, not to the Nebraska fans, but the Nebraska players. Because you look at the end of that game when the clocks hit 0:00, they were able to run across that sideline, get that trophy, and they were able to celebrate with their fans. That good for the players, because they hadn't beaten Iowa in 7 years. This group of seniors has lost to Iowa every single time. If they were recruited in the fall of 17, winter of 18, they've gone through three coaches, turmoil left and right, best coach in America, and Scott Frost, to the most abysmal, situation to be in. They never were able to play in a bowl game at such a rich tradition of school like Nebraska. To see them celebrate with that trophy and to do it with their fans, good for them and good for those players. And this will be probably a lot of the last time these kids play a down of football in their life, and they are able to go out on a high note. So, you're happy with the Nebraska players because they earned it and they needed something to go right for them, because
Well,
nothing
and
happened last
especially
4
the way this game played out, where they were up. It was similar to
Mhm.
last year, where they were up big by 3 scores, and then all of a sudden, Iowa starts making a comeback. It was like, and they talked about it. The sideline reporter talked about it, where it kind of felt like it was like the on that
Oh my God,
where
it's
it was like,
happening
oh,
again.
it's happening again. Here we go again. We're gonna find a way to blow this. They had a
Yep.
couple of interceptions bounce out in and out of their hands, but then they were finally able to seal the deal with 50 seconds left. There was that turnover where they were able to hold them to a field goal. It was just a just yeah, you have to, especially for what they, like you said, what they've went through, and just the
Mhm.
all the three coaching changes, and you got to be happy for a guy like Mickey Joseph, who is a former Husker, and
Yep.
hopefully Matt Rule is able to keep him on staff, because I think you need some type of alumni base there that was there when things were good, and get those kids back to understanding what it took to maintain that level of dominance that they had in the 90s.
And then also, a big part also in today's world of college football we live in, if you keep Mickey Joseph on staff, these young men, they're not going to want to transfer because they know someone's there, someone who fought for them, someone who went to hell and back with him this year, excuse me, as their interim coach, knows what it takes to win at Nebraska. And they can say, hey, Mickey Joseph, he has my back. So
Yeah.
you hope Matt Rule can keep him on as what, the wide receivers coach, assistant head coach, something along those lines. But yeah, Dylan, you're right. To recap Iowa's year, they haven't really ever done much in the transfer portal. I mean, they've gotten a couple defensive linemen from once they got a guy from Northern Illinois and another smaller level, or Charlie Jones came in from Buffalo, but he had to be a walk on. Well, now's the time where you got to try to go after not only one person but two or three people, because this program is headed in the wrong direction. And if you can't get a competent quarterback, and if you can't bring some excitement into this offensive system, these players, they're not going to want to come here. And soon you're going to have players who should be playing wide receiver at Northern Iowa who are now going to be playing at the Big Ten level because they're thinking this, well, shoot, I can play college football in the Big Ten. When really, actually, Big Ten caliber players don't want to come to your university. And, there's an Iowa receiver on the roster this year that worries me that he's going to hit the transfer portal. And Keenan Johnson, number 6, he was a true freshman in 2021. He had a good, true freshman year. He was probably the best. He was the best receiver coming back for this year's team. A lot of potential. He missed the South Dakota State game and the Iowa State game with an ankle injury, I believe. Tried to come back against Nevada, but you never heard from him for the rest of the year. You never heard from him. Never heard from him. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then it dawned on me about a week and a half ago. I'm thinking, you know what? He's probably telling the coaches and medical staff, this ankle's bugging me. I can't go. I can't go. Because now, since he didn't play in those 4 games, guess what? He doesn't lose a year of eligibility, and he could transfer somewhere else and still have, 4 years to play. So things like that can happen, with this Iowa team. And you're right, they have 4 underclassmen on the offensive line, which hey, it's Iowa. That shouldn't be an issue, but they didn't look like they practiced and they knew how to communicate at all this year. So your offensive line coach, which surprisingly was not Brian Ferentz, should be fired. Brian Ferentz should stop coaching your quarterbacks, and Brian Ferentz should be off the roster. And then Kirky boy, he needs to be sat down by the athletic director and say, hey, if you don't make these subtle changes, you're gone. And we're not going to fire you, but we're going to mutually agree to part ways in the coming years. Because if they keep playing like this, the athletic program is going to lose money because no one's going to want to support them, no one's going to want to go, and the AD is going to lose his job. So it's going to be an interesting off season, an interesting 18 to 24 months there in Iowa City for this football program.